All right.
Mark, good to see you back at Carrow Road, meeting the fans again. I always think there are two separate stories at any time with any sports team, really. There's the bigger picture, the plan, the way it's all heading, and there's the here and now. And at the moment, the here and now, Norwich have lost 3 straight games. So, as someone who's going to be the majority shareholder, how does that affect you when the team is losing?
Well, 3 games and, 3 points out of 18, which, is not like we lost 3 and then won 3 before. So, look, you live and die with every match, and we do in baseball. This year, our club was the only team in Major League Baseball that did not lose 4 in a row. And it's over 162 games. So, yeah, the fact that we just lost 3 really hurt. And how we lost was worse. But, in 20 seasons in sports, you find you're never as good as you think you are when you're going well, and you're not as bad as you think you are when you're going poorly. This is not. If this was our club, I would be very worried. This is not our club. Ben said in the AGM tonight that by the transfer window, everybody, including Josh Sargent, should be back. So, who's going to get added in the transfer window? Well, a lot of really good players just internally. And so it did put a damper on where I thought we could end up this year. We still could make the playoffs. We're exactly where we were. And I think this team, if it's healthy, will be more dangerous in the playoffs this year than last year's club was. But, the injuries kind of bitten us so far. It's why it's important to have a plan and to follow through and execute on that plan, because we know we're moving in the right direction, and we're going to keep doing things in that direction and not stray to try to Band-Aid,
Which is a nod towards what might happen in January, and already at the AGM,
Say nod.
people are saying, Mark's here, maybe he's going to put his hand in his pocket and
the hands in
lots of players. So
no, the hands
what's the answer?
That's really, nobody maybe believes this. The only cap on what we can put our hand in the pocket for is the FNS rules. If Ben said, hey, I've got 3 great guys, and now if that doesn't fit what he'd otherwise told us, then the question would be, well, gee, you told us you were going to do things one way, now we're doing things a different way. Why change? But if we could find 3 players that would fit not only what Ben has told us, but what the coaches said, because Johannes has said he doesn't want to have a overly wieldy squad to manage. He doesn't want to have 5 people sitting on the bench who are sulking because they think they're as good as the people on the pitch. So. And it's very hard. I've been here now, this will be the 3rd season. The January transfer window is not easy to add players. So who we added last year didn't work out so great. Mm-hmm. So, but look, this is what's fun about sports, because we get to look and see. And Ben's identified a couple of targets. So, but it's, because they're good, there are other clubs that want them as well. Several.
So it's wait and see.
It's wait and see.
What is that? Can you give us a brief outline of what that player profile is? Because you said in the AGM there is a plan, and if Ben comes to you, it's got to be in line with what he's told you he's going to do. So I know you probably don't want to give everything away to all the other clubs.
No, I want to let him describe what. But I think if you all just he's done a good job of providing a narrative for what he's looking to do. So I would say it's more of the same. So you can sort of connect those dots and then ask him, and he'll say it's too early to get in. He told me and Mike yesterday it's too early to get into it. It's we can talk about this in a month.
So it's wait and see on that one. Just finally, you took lots of questions from shareholders tonight, and you've been in sports for a long time. And isn't it fascinating what supporters really care about? Because we all get carried away with what's happening on the pitch and the results.
Sure.
But there's so much more that goes into the fan experience, whether it be the halftime entertainment, what the food is like, what the floodlights are like.
The floodlights bother me too, right?
Reasons,
but because they were put in to be in the Premier League, and we plan to get back to the Premier League. Everything we're doing is planning towards that. We're keeping those floodlights there. I mean, I think where there should be a concern my son Mike was saying to me, gee, when you talked about maybe this or that, you think we could win this year. Well, sure, we think we can win this year. So, no, we're not going to change. If we start changing the floodlights, then the plan has changed.
Well, Mark, lovely to speak to you, and
Great.
good luck for the rest of this season. I'll hand over to the other lads now.
And appreciate all the great announcing. And I have to admit also, even though this is the third season, to get tuned in on the accents takes about the first 10 minutes of the match. And then we're good to go.
Well, it's nice to know that there's somebody out there listening to us, Mark.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. We'll be
I even
thinking
listen to, and by the way, sometimes this is probably not whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can stay on and Canary Call runs right through on Sky Sports, and sometimes it cuts off and then you got to figure out how to dial in. Why is that?
That is a good question. One to ask the technical people back at our base. That's like, you said earlier on I'd have to ask Ben Napper a question. I'll have to ask my version of Ben Napper why that happens. You're welcome to phone in one week, though.
Yeah, once I sent you all I followed the rule. I guess there's some people are rule followers and some people are rule breakers. I'm a rule follower. So you say if you have something, send it. So I sent a text or an email, and I think you got it, I heard.
We did.
But no, I'll dial in for sure. Except, I'm really superstitious. I already qualified projections here tonight because I don't want to jinx anything. And I thought, if I had called you when we were really excited about those wins, I would have felt that all these injuries would be because I called you and said, hey, look at the Canaries, we're doing great. But I will call, for sure.
We'll look forward to it. Paddy?
Mark, just a few more if I can.
Great.
I thought it was interesting you were asked what is your vision over a 5-year stretch in the formal meeting, and you said, quote, you'd feel a failure if this club isn't back in the Premier League in that 5-year stretch. What are the keys? Because obviously, that's pretty clear, that's black and white. What are the keys for you to achieve that? And
to be clear, so that's saying that this is our responsibility, and we have a plan. We have a plan. We have the executive talent. We believe we can build the academy talent because you're going to need a young player pipeline to be part of this. And I know we have the money. So, but sports is dynamic. It's not static. And so we're on this. I talk to Ben twice a week. And then when we came last night, Mike and I spent 2 hours with the assistant coaches. Johannes is getting licensed. I didn't realize you have to get licensed, like you're an airline pilot or something, to get licensed. And but we met every coach and got to know all of them really well. And Ben and Neil were part of that. And then we spent another 90 minutes with them alone. Then in the board meeting today, I'd say Ben's presentation was over an hour. And I'm otherwise talking to him twice a week because you want to. It takes a while to process all this, so that if we have to make a quick decision, it seems like in these transfer windows, even though they're months in advance and they're for weeks at a time, you have to make quick decisions. And so we'll be ready to make a quick decision if we need to. I would say in both sports in 20 years, there have been, probably hundreds of decisions, and maybe we haven't supported under 10 of them. And it's because the decision wasn't matching up with what the stated plan was. And and Ben is as disciplined as anybody, so I don't think he's going to veer from his plan. But if he does, and he has a good reason to, you can't. An owner can set a tone, but then and they can provide resources, and then you need to provide a path for people to succeed. So for whether it's the sporting side or the business side, if they want to do something, you have to help them do it and make sure. You have to ask intelligent questions, but I'm not going to replace my judgment for Ben Napper's. So if he's got an idea that's out of the box for this transfer window, and it's a little different than what we've talked about, and he's committed to it, we're going to support him. We are.
What about the other side of that? Ben was asked in the shareholder meeting about Borja Sainz, who is red hot at the moment, and you wouldn't be surprised if there was interest in January. in years past and not all that long ago, maybe decisions would have had to be made in terms of player sales based on the finances or lack of, rather than football decisions. That's very much not how it's going to be on your watch.
No, we can control what we can control, so we don't need to sell Borgia in January. And, you know, I frankly, we don't need to sell him ever. It's just, at some point, there's an element of fairness, if I understand the ecosystem, where if you're getting paid a very full price, it doesn't have to be an extreme price, and it's something that someone wants to do, and they've been, you know, Borgia's been great for us, right? He does everything. He runs for 90 minutes. By the way, today I went in and I met everybody who's in the executive, you know, even down to the assistants. And for the player, there's a chart for all the players and appearances they've made. Nobody in this club has made more appearances on behalf of the club than Borgia Signs. And I said to them, I said, well, wow, that's great, you know, because he's working really hard. And they said, well, he's very popular now. I said, well, yeah, but does he ever say no? He said, no, he always goes. So, you know, there's great character. And so you want, if at some point he wants to move on, you do that. But, you know, January would be a little too early for us, I think.
Which is, Norwich fans will be glad to hear that, Mark. And a couple more if I can. Just because you were touched on it, you said you were humbled and gratified that the shareholders backed that process where obviously the Delia and Michael share allotment went through recently. But just on a personal note, 28 years, it would be great to get your personal recollections of how easy, how they welcomed you in, how much the process was made a lot easier because of their feeling that you were on the same wavelength, and that process and how that managed and evolved to where we are today.
Yeah, which went back, you know, what was interesting, so we first bought Michael Folger's shares. So Michael Folger could have gone and tried to sell his shares to the highest price he could get. Instead, they hired a banker who interviewed at least four groups, and the first meeting, actually, Mike and Eric Siegel, who's here, and I were on a video call with the entire executive staff, including Stuart Weber, and a lot of questions went to a long discussion. So like a 30-minute Zoom call went to like almost an hour and a half, maybe longer, and so our vision hit. And they said, well, the banker would call and he'd say, they really like you, will you do it? I said, well, look, we spent 3 months doing our diligence, because you want to be good to your word. You don't want to say I'll do it and then back out. And by the way, we lost. I came and saw the match against Tottenham. We lost 5-1, and I still decided to do it. That was a tough game. The first half it was 2-1, and hey, we're pretty good. This other team's great. And then they decided to try a little bit, but they were always very welcoming. For my family, Delia and my wife Debbie correspond a lot, and then, you know, she felt like I would be a good choice, and so a year ago this August, so, you know, what would that be, you know, 15 months ago or 16 months ago, you wanted to know, I think I said this in one of the discussions, that it was sort of like if you have a daughter and then there's a guy who's dating her, and what are your intentions? Delia basically asked me what my intentions were, and I said, well, you know, I'm still getting my arms around this, and said, well, you know, would you want to, you know, if we wanted to do something, would you take this over? And I said, I have to really think, you know, if this is an enormous response, I embrace it for sure, but it's not something you take lightly. And so she looked at me and she said, well, so you want to have a think on it? Which I guess more of a British way. So yeah, I'm going to have a think on it. But and so last year we were able to help recruit Ben Napper, and we saw that whether it was Johannes or there were a couple of other coaches that would fit this system that we would like, because I believe you need to have a system that works every season, and it doesn't matter at some point who your coach is. You have the rights, and we're not. if we're talking Pep Guardiola, we're never going to have Pep Guardiola as the co-chair. So of course it matters if you have him, but we have to have a system that's repeatable. And I felt we could develop that here, so I told her I thought we could do this. And they're at the point after 28 years where they want to just come to the matches and cheer. And the sport's gotten expensive, and there's a lot of it's changed from when they started. And I think in my mid 80s, I've got two sons who like sports, so. But I don't know that I would be, trying to run a club against, all the people we have to compete with in my mid 80s.
Yeah.
But Mike would be up to it. And and so this evolved very quickly. Once they came to me in the spring and said, "Look, we'd like to do something," and I said, "Well, I think this is complicated. You get an advisor. They got a really brilliant advisor, actually, but we worked through it pretty quickly because it's something they wanted and it's something we wanted to. Our group is very enthusiastic about this opportunity, and frankly, in part because we think it's going to really be fun."
And on that very final point, if I may, Mark, anybody looking from the outside in at you and your family and the longevity with the Brewers, it clearly feels like once you commit, you go all in and you stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
So how excited should Norwich fans be at the start of this process now, where you and Norfolk Holdings are just taking a bit more of a step forward now?
Oh, we're gonna stick with it, and we need to be patient. Mike cautioned me that is not out of a lack of confidence, but you have to be realistic about what it's going to take, and to be realistic about not straying from what you think in the bigger picture will. The goal is to get to the Premier League and then ultimately to stay there. So for baseball, it took only 3 or 4 years to get to playoff contention, but it took 12 years to always be there. So you have to get yourself ready for that, and it's not so much to not get disappointed, but to not stray from what your program is. Now, if for some reason, look, there's already clubs in the Premier League that do what we're trying to do, so we just have to do it as well, and we have to hope that some of them will stray. Generally, my money management business, we've done the same thing for 34 years, and this will jinx that too. Almost never make a bad loan in a very highly risky business with almost $50 billion to invest, because we do the same thing and we don't stray. Of course, we adapted it over time. Now we focus more on free cash flow and not asset-rich companies, but we stick to our knitting. We don't try to do that. That's why we have Richard, by the way, Richard Russler joining as a director. At Crescent, I never went into real estate. We know how to, make investments in corporations. He knows how to develop and manage real estate. And so the money, he's got tens of billions of dollars in his firm. And so if we're looking around Carrow Road to figure out how to develop it, we're letting, Richard came out and spent 2 days here. He's the expert in that, not me. But we're going to bring, whatever we do, we're going to bring expert advice to what we do here and stick to our discipline.
On behalf of Norwich fans, I wish you all the best, Mark. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.